One, two, three.
Hello and welcome to the Narc Alert, the channel where we look at different YouTubers and celebrities and point out some traits that they seem to show that fall within the spectrum of narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. Please do not send any snark to our subjects. First of all, let me say very clearly once again, we are having a little messy fun. This is not a diagnosis. We're simply going to point out some traits that this YouTuber shows us that seem similar to traits that fall within NPD. So key points to remember: messy fun and not a diagnosis. Hello my lovely alerts and welcome back to the Narc Alert. I hope you're having a great week and I hope you're winning, and if you're not, well, we'll go get them next week. Don't worry. In this video, we're going to look at Joe Exotic. Tiger King is a story made famous by Netflix, where men wrestle with wild cats, a person's arm is ripped off, and a feud escalates into hit for hire. This sadly true story uncovers the world of big cats and those who collect them, focusing on Joe Exotic, a zookeeper turned prisoner, and his long-running feud with animal activist Carole Baskin. The series focuses on Joseph Maldonado Passage, 57, also known as Joe Exotic, one of the most prolific tiger owners in the U.S. To be fair, I was introduced to Joe quite a while ago in a documentary by Louis Theroux, one of my all-time favorite documentarians. But it was Netflix and a pandemic that got everyone to watch. The self-professed gay, gun-toting cowboy with a mullet ran a big cat zoo in Oklahoma for years before he was sent to prison this year for plotting to murder his arch-rival, Carole Baskin, from Big Cat Rescue. For 20 years, Joe enjoyed a sort of celebrity status, breeding his cats as well as running his own TV station. He even had failed runs for president and governor. He presented his own show, released country music, and even opened his own version of Hooters, dubbed Zooters, with male waiters. But all wasn't as it seemed behind his celebrity lifestyle. He was battling against animal activist Carole Baskin. Joe faced accusations of animal cruelty.
That's okay then that we put in the feed book that we fed him.
Yeah, because there's no way that they can come out here and say, oh, on a Tuesday last week, you didn't feed.
Say we didn't feed him for 2 days, is that like a law that we can't?
Yes, it's in the USDA book. You can only fast 1 day a week.
Yeah. So those weeks that we fasted 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, it could have got shut down because we didn't have the means to provide for them.
Abuse and lawsuits, including a copyright battle with Carole Baskin. Joe and company accused Carole as well, saying she'd killed her missing husband and fed him to the tigers. There is zero evidence to support this, and she has never been charged. Joe endured a difficult upbringing, and in 1997, he lost his brother to a drunk driving accident. Using $140,000 from a settlement won by his family, Joe bought 16 acres of land in his memory and installed 9 cages, dedicating it to his brother and naming it the Gerald Wayne Exotic Animal Memorial Park, or GW Zoo. At first, he only had a deer, buffalo, and a mountain lion, but soon he had people dropping off tigers and other creatures. By the year 2000, Joe had his own tigers, Tess and Tickles, who went on to have cubs. The year after, Joe's husband Brian died from an infection, leaving Joe alone again. The zoo continued to grow, though, and soon housed 89 cats and more than 1,000 other creatures. Most organizations involved with animal activism have been after Joe and the GW Zoo for years. The Humane Society of the United States has been working for years to stop the horrific treatment of animals at these and many other similar cruel operations. In 2011, a Humane Society of United States investigator worked undercover at Joe Exotic, GW Exotics, for 100 days. Aside from abuse allegations, the issue is that they masquerade as a rescue or conservation operations, but in fact they breed tigers and subject the cubs who are torn from their mothers immediately after birth to stress and abuse. After a few months, when the cubs are too large for close encounters with the public and the opportunity for profit is over, the cubs are caged and sold into the pet trade or die. In this video, we'll be taking a look at a video Joe made defending himself before the airing of a National Geographic special that featured him. Let's see what Joe has to say.
Hi, I'm Joe Exotic from the GW Exotic Animal Park, and this is going to be a pre-Nat Geo animal intervention series that I'm going to do myself, so we can make sure that there's no editing or foul play or an animal rights direction to this show.
Joe agreed to be in the National Geographic special, but like so many who have signs of NPD, he wants to control the narrative before the show even airs.
What we're going to do is we're going to show you the things they didn't tell you and the facts that they tell you that's wrong, just to make a dramatic movie that sells on TV. The only thing I have to say about Allison Eastwood is at least she was a stand-up enough person to put on her blog what she actually thought about the GW Exotic Animal Park and myself.
This story was at GW Animal Park, and we had heard about this very controversial guy, Joe Exotic, who has this animal park, and there are a lot of animal activists who don't like him and find him to be a bad person and cruelty to animals. I mean, you name it. And so I was a little skeptical and a little worried about what we were going to find and who this person was. I must say I was surprised and pleasantly surprised that, you know, the facility's really nice. All the animals look healthy. They all look happy. I didn't see any abuse here. Our biggest issue in what we were doing on this show was his breeding policy.
One thing I thought was kind of hysterical.
To continue to reframe the National Geographic story, he shows a positive clip, but it fades out just as she was about to discuss her concerns.
Eugene with Nat Geo and Animal Intervention brings out two movie stars to tell me what I'm doing wrong about breeding cubs that have never seen one, let alone touched one, or bred one, or raised one.
Just an observation, whoever edited this clip has an odd style, leaving in the awkward angles, so Joe is not facing the camera a good deal of the time. It's just weird.
So let's get into breeding first of all. Everybody would love to see cubs grow up with their mom. In a perfect world. Unfortunately, this is no longer a perfect world. You have many things to think about when you're raising cubs or you're raising anything in captivity. We're here in Oklahoma, where we have rattlesnakes, rat snakes, bull snakes, copperheads, coral snakes, and these animals are in their compounds, just like they'd be in the wild. So in order to save a species properly and take care of the cubs responsibly, we need to pull the cubs at the safest time in order to save the tigers from the elements.
There's so much ego here. He's not saving animals, he's breeding them for profit. The tigers do not need him to protect them from snakes, and removing cubs when they are born is in no way the right thing to do for an animal.
Or the other animals. Another big thing that come up during the Nat Geo filming was we pull our babies anywhere between 8 and 10 days. We do that for two reasons. One is they take to a bottle much easier once they're pulled, and they become tamer tigers, as you can tell by all of the tigers that we have here.
Like so many with traits of NPD, he is self-important. He knows better than nature herself how to raise tigers. If you're saving a species, you try to avoid bottle feeding and taming.
One of the big things about filming the Nat Geo thing is they brought a specialist in from Oklahoma State University, Dr. Konoria Ketz. They fly in a thing saying that 23 cubs died between the year of 2009 and 2010. It was actually during an 18-month period. But the amazing thing is they have it on tape and they chose not to show it. That Dr. Ketz was the attending veterinarian trying to save those babies' lives. She's also the attending veterinarian at Oklahoma State University that did the necropsies and proved that it was the KMR that killed those babies and that I went public.
Classic avoiding responsibility. He lost a great many tiger cubs in a short period. He's blaming the attending vet for not saving them, rather than take any responsibility for the babies whom he shouldn't be breeding at all.
It's shows like Animal Intervention that set you up to fail from the very beginning. The cameras roll, just to sell drama on TV. In fact, they fly in little things saying between 625 Indo-Chinese tigers reside in the wild, trying to make me look like I don't know what I'm talking about. In fact, the last Indo-Chinese tiger that was in the wild was spotted in the year 2007. He was shot and killed and eaten by a human being, and that human being was sentenced to 12 years of prison. So we actually don't even have any Indo-Chinese tigers in the wild. So why does Animal Intervention, along with Nat Geo, want to make us look like we don't know what we're talking about? Another strange thing that they do is when we're talking about ligers, that's a lion dad and a tiger mom crossbred in order to create a liger. They fly in their little thing saying that it is not natural and it resolves of birth defects.
Crossing the species line does not generally occur in the wild because it would result in diminished fitness of the offspring, according to the Director of Conservation at the Minnesota Zoo. These big cats are crossbred in captivity out of greed, with no concern about what the future holds for the poor offspring of these forced matings. This is all about the human, not the cats.
In order to crossbreed animals, which is very untrue. It's genetically proven this year alone by a university out of Texas that hybrid cats are genetically stronger than any hybrid cat there is.
There is a grain of truth to what Joe says here. Of course, for those with NPD, the truth tends to be malleable to suit them. A cursory look at the research paper he refers to shows that they are talking about how hybridization historically caused different breeds, not about modern-day breeding aberrations.
This ought to tell you just what is Nat Geo trying to prove. Trying to show that we're all idiots, or we don't have the strength to fight back and tell the truth to the viewers.
The National Geographic has a fairly stellar reputation. In typical NPD fashion, Joe is trying to discredit them in hopes people will believe his narrative as opposed to National Geographic's facts.
I especially like the part where Donald gets on TV and says, "Joe, aren't you a little bit of a mad scientist or a snake oil salesman or maybe just a salesman? Or what do you think if people think you're crazy?" Well, I don't think I'm half as crazy letting our animals crossbreed to create a new species on their own rather than taking the DNA and cloning them like they're going to do in Brazil. Or hey, how about animal and people combination?
People with NPD feel wronged when they are not allowed to circumvent the system. Here he is finding the most outlandish comparisons to justify his actions as acceptable.
I had to really laugh. I love the bear pits in South Carolina or wherever they were that aired on the same episode as mine does. They actually threw Bob Barker off their property. Now he deserved that one. You know, bears belong in the wild, running around on grass, playing games, everything else according to Bob Barker. Well, unfortunately, the day after I saw that episode air, here in Oklahoma, they shot and killed 66 wild bears. And we don't even have that many bears here in Oklahoma. But we have so many bears, Bob Barker, that they can actually open a season and kill 66 of your bears that are running around having fun, playing games.
Hunting, whether you agree or not, is legal in many states. It is also monitored and carefully regulated to keep the population of the animals in mind. He's trying to appeal to emotions, to show himself as the better, more caring person.
Now you got to ask yourself, which bears are safer? Ours in our park, or the ones running around in the wild with grass between their toes being slaughtered, all for a hunting license?
This twisted logic is akin to saying you are better off in prison under a watchful eye in living your life because there is a chance that you could meet harm.
You can blame people like Animal Intervention and Eugene with Nat Geo, along with Wayne Pacelli and Ingrid Newkirk, of why people have to defend themselves. They make fake videos, such as Animal Intervention, without telling the truth of what really goes on. And then you have the people out there on medication to keep their brains functioning right that think we're hurting animals, when in fact we're the only ones on the planet that are trying to save the species. That's the zoos, some sanctuaries, and most of the private owners.
The grandiosity of NPD allows him to think privately owning exotic, endangered animals and breeding them for cages is in any way related to ethically saving a species.
When I first introduced myself to Allison Eastwood, they cut out the part where I shook her hand and I said I was against women posing nude because it would make every man on the planet think of my mom when they see a lady standing naked. And they chose to cut that out, but that's okay. The part that they did put in there, and they loved the drama, is I wear a gun. I wear a gun for one reason, that is to protect my animals from the people of the world.
So is the vet gonna come euthanize him, or are we just gonna shoot him?
No, we've got to shoot him.
We're just gonna blow his head off?
Put a hole in his head, yeah.
Why can't we just have the vet come do it?
One, it's going to be a lot cheaper than buying medication to euthanize them.
We've had people try and break in here and let the animals out, crawl in a cage to kill himself, and everything else. So, is it extreme? Yes. They show me many times funneling with my gun and pulling it out and saying, yes, this is extreme. Here in America, the most extreme part that I can imagine is we have to wear guns to protect ourselves against the animal rights people.
He makes himself a victim, and he says he has to be armed to protect himself against people who disagree with him. He speaks of showing off his gun for the cameras and showboating. This sounds more like a play for attention than protection.
You know, last night I watched an episode of Ellen with Allison and Donald that were the stars of the Ellen Show. You know, the only problem I have with Animal Intervention or anything else of this matter is, you know, the AZA will not take any of these animals that they're taking from private people. So where are they going to go? And who's going to pay the price to move them, house them, and feed them for the rest of their lives? As you can see today, we're moving in more cats here at the GW Exotic Animal Park at our expense. So, is it fair that Animal Intervention can pocket the millions of dollars or however much they made on making animal interventions with Nat Geo, and then take the 34 cats per se in Arkansas that needed to be moved now that they talked the lady into giving them up? But who's going to pay the bill? It's the private zoos and the private sanctuaries that's going to foot the bill, the manpower and the feed to take care of these animals for the rest of their lives. How come Nat Geo didn't get their checkbook out and help fund the problem that they just created?
He is once again discrediting National Geographic. He also mentions sanctuaries and zoos in the same breath as if they are interchangeable, when they are not. There are many accredited, respected organizations that take care of cats. It does not fall to private owners.
You know, when I'm sitting in the studio and they're actually filming us making a live show, they leave out the part of who I call out there. So we're going to throw it out there. When I talk about the $500,000 reward for somebody to come forward with the information leading to the arrest of who killed Terry Thompson, that was for Wayne Pacelli with the Humane Society of the United States. If you give up a $500,000 reward and somebody comes forward leading to the conviction of whoever killed Terry Thomas, I said I would neuter and spay every animal on my park, and I'll still do that today if we can prove that Terry Thompson was murdered. And that's the part that Nat Geo left out.
Yeah.
If you truly love your animals and honestly think you are helping to preserve the species, do you throw them up as an asset for the kitty in some bet? He said he will fix all of his animals if he loses a bet.
Okay, now let's just talk about Nat Geo overall. Okay. You know, what did you think about Nat Geo?
You know, I thought the episode that they did on us was all right, other than the facts. They didn't have the facts right.
You know, they kept flying in miscommunication facts because they're living on the fact that 90% of the viewers don't know the difference between the facts. Kind of like the Indo-Chinese tiger thing.
And they don't.
You know, we only have 2,800 tigers in the United States. That was just released not too long ago by the Feline Conservation Federation. And the funny thing is they put 2,500 just in Indo-Chinese tigers, when in fact there ain't even any left. Okay, the last one was found in 2007. But you know, overall, what I thought of Nat Geo was they could have really done something good to help animals.
If only the National Geographic could learn from Joe and really make an effort to help animals.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's our side of Nat Geo. Stay tuned at 8 o'clock.
Ah, little did Joe know then that the entire world would stay tuned. There you go, our look at Joe Exotic. Do you think he's a narcissist? Thank you again for tuning in. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe. Jump over to TNA2 and check out the second channel. If you'd like to support the channel more, please click on memberships. We offer videos and lives for members only, little special bonuses now and then. Thank you for all your support. Please have a great night. We'll see you again tomorrow. Hasta luego.